After sitting there silently for a long time, the commander picks up that book again and starts looking at it. Sigdong, Sigdong. This name felt so familiar to him. Then a word comes to the commander's mind. You cannot die, uncle. The commander then throws that book into the fire, goes near the stone mountain, bows to it, apologizes, and then breaks the mountain. After that, the commander pulls out a box from underground that looked like a cask. Inside that box were his 2 swords. One was named Guma, and the other was named Dimnik's sword. Looking at those swords, the commander, in his mind, starts to prepare himself. On the other side, we see some warriors who had come to help the Zhang family. One of those warriors was named Gog Junpeng, and the other warrior was named Gong Jinsu. Officer Li had found these 2 warriors. Both of them say that they will help the Zhang family by giving their strength. The third and final master warrior was Yang Zhejian, who had been active in Gungo for decades and was a disciple of Wasanpa. Hearing that he was a disciple of Wasanpa, Zhangju becomes very happy. Seeing these 3 master warriors, the Zhang family gains some confidence. Zhang, Ryun, Mr. Hung, and everyone finally see a ray of hope. Zhangju tells those 3 warriors, I will try to help you all as much as possible. According to the alliance, I will give you 5 silver coins every month for the next year as a mission benefit. So do your best to help this family. This family needs warriors like you. Hearing this, all 3 become happy. Zhang Jin then says again, if you all have no objection, I would like to give you 3 a suggestion. Look, although the elders and leaders know everything about you, the rest of my family members do not know what kind of people you are. So why don't you introduce yourselves to them? Don't worry. In return, I will give you extra money. Hearing about money, all of them agree. First, one person comes forward to show his skill, Gong Jian Piwu. Before showing his skill, he says, just for entertainment, why don't we place a bet while demonstrating our skills? I saw a lot of cotton wools outside. Why don't we try cutting some cotton wool and see whose output is the most beautiful? Zhangju also likes this idea. A minister then orders Mr. Hung to bring some cotton wools. At first, Mr. Hung is a little surprised, but then he goes outside to bring the cotton wool. No minister or elder in this family respected Mr. Hung. We will learn the reason behind this later. Gok Jinping carefully observes those cotton wools once, then suddenly takes out a black cloth and ties it over his eyes. Seeing him do this, everyone is astonished. They do not understand whether he will even be able to cut those cotton wools in this condition. Gok Jinping then throws those cotton wools into the air, but as expected, the height and spacing of all those cotton wools were very different from each other, making it very difficult to cut them all at once. Gok Jinping does nothing, and lets those cotton wools come into his range. Then, before anyone can even blink, he slices twice with his suit. No one understands what just happened, but then suddenly, all those cotton wools start falling from the sky like snow, which makes all the Zheng family members go crazy with happiness. Gok Jinping then gives that black cloth to Mr. Hung to check, and Mr. Hung finds that he really can't see anything through that cloth. After that, Hung Jinsu steps forward to show his skill. He also takes some cotton wools in his hand and throws them up into the air, then jumps and slices those cotton wools into long pieces with the help of his sword, as if someone had cut paper with scissors. Seeing this, Zheng Ryun even leaves her seat and starts clapping. Now it was the turn of Wasanpa's disciple, Ning Judjin. He takes 3 cotton wools in his hand, and like the others, throws them into the air, but he does not jump. Standing still, he swings his sword 4 to 5 times. Seeing this, everyone becomes disappointed. That's it? But then, from those 3 cotton wools, one falls into Zhang Jin's hand, and another falls into Zhang Ryun's hand, which shocks both of them, because those cotton wools were in the shape of plum blossoms. Ning Judjin had changed the shape and design of a cotton wool just with a few slashes. Seeing this, the entire room erupts in applause. This was expected from a disciple of Wasanpa. Seeing the skills of these 3, leader Zhang Jin becomes very happy. That is why he promises to give these 3 10 silver coins and 1 treasure from his family, which makes them very happy as well. After all this, we see Mr. Hung cleaning the room with the help of others, but still, some cotton wools were left scattered there. Mr. Hung picks up one of the cotton wools and starts wondering whether he could do something like that too. But just then, Lord Zhangju arrives, interrupting Mr. Hung's thoughts. Zhangju asks, "Did you find any guard?" Mr. Hung had no answer to this question. Zhang Jin tries to reassure him. The elders are lucky, you know that? If Hung No had brought a warrior, that warrior would have been stronger than those 3, Mr. Hung says. No. The warriors Elder Li and Elder Sun Men brought today were truly incredible. I don't think I could have found someone like that. Zhang Jin places a hand on Mr. Hung's back and says, "It is unfortunate that you couldn't bring him. I know this thing will always bother you, but I think there is a good thing too." because even if you had succeeded in bringing that person you mentioned, the other elders might not have even allowed him to enter, no matter how good he was. Most of the time, you have to face their sarcasm or criticism, so just forget about it. Mr. Hung thanks him for saying such words. After Zhangju leaves, Mr. Hung starts feeling that maybe whatever happened was for the best. The 3 warriors he saw today were exceptionally great. Their ability to cut cotton wools blindfolded, like snow or paper sheets, or transform them into the shape of a plum blossom, was almost magical. Cutting like that, or transforming into the shape of a plum blossom, was almost magical. It didn't matter how long you had worked for the Blind Association. There was no guarantee that he was better than them. Besides, I don't even know what he used to do in the past. Mr. Hung was thinking about the commander. Meanwhile, as Mr. Hung was sitting and thinking about all this, a girl came to him and said that a man had come to meet him outside. When he went out and saw the man, Mr. Hung's eyes widened. He couldn't believe his eyes. The commander was standing there. Seeing him, Mr. Hung screamed like a madman, "You! Here! I never thought you would come. I'm telling you, seeing you almost stopped my heart. Thank you so much." Then, seeing the commander's face, he composed himself. "I'm sorry, I was talking too loudly." The commander said, "Once again, I haven't met anyone else before, so please don't expect too much from me." Mr. Hung replied, No, it's okay. It's okay. Just your presence here gives me so much strength. I'm happy you're here. And now that you are here, let's arrange a room for you. But before that, let me find a coat for you because, in these clothes, you will attract even more attention." Then Mr. Hung went to find clothes, but for some reason, he suddenly stopped, came back, and asked the commander, "Can I ask you something? Can you cut things while keeping your eyes closed?" The commander's face showed that he didn't understand the question. Mr. Hung asked again, can you cut a falling object while keeping your eyes closed? For example, do you see that cotton wool over there? The one that can fall at any moment? Can you cut it with your eyes closed?" The commander replied, "I don't know because I've never tried it." Mr. Hung felt a little disappointed but then asked, "Then how many cotton wools can you cut with your eyes open?" No. Can you turn cotton wool into a flower? For example, can you shape it into a plum blossom or some other flower? But then, seeing the expressionless face of the commander, Mr. Hung himself felt bad and said, "Well, after all, who can't do that?" Then he said, "Actually, apart from you, we have invited 3 more guests to the Zhang family, and there was a skill demonstration where those 3 showcased their abilities. One of them." Then, Mr. Hung started explaining to the commander about the skills of those 3 warriors. The commander just listened without reacting. Just think about how incredible this is. Yes, I can't even imagine how much rigorous training they must have gone through to develop such skills. Then, Mr. Hung handed the black cloth to the commander and told him to try it if he got time. And if the results were good, he asked him to tell him later how many cotton wools he was able to cut. After that, Mr. Hung went to find a room for the commander. Looking at the cotton wools, the commander said, "Is this really something extraordinary?" Meanwhile, Zheng Rian was trying to imitate those 3 masters. She also tried to throw cotton wools into the air and cut them with a sword. But as expected, she failed. However, in the process, she almost hit Shokdong. Shokdong returned the sword and said, "Miss, you don't need to do all this. Maybe you should focus more on your herbal studies." Zhang Rian said, "I want to be the strength of the family. In such a situation, sitting at home and studying doesn't feel right to me." Shokdong said, "That's why those warriors have come. Didn't you see their skills? Look at what they can do with just cotton wool." Zhang Rian replied, "Still, I am worried. Are they enough? I'm not so sure. I have heard that many new warriors have joined Sijajung. I don't know if my family will even be able to stand against those warriors." Seokdong tried to reassure her. "Oh, don't worry, miss. Our warriors will defeat those guys. And even if something happens, I am here to protect you." But Zhang Rian didn't even hear Seokdong's last line, because she had already closed her eyes and prepared once again to cut the cotton wools. Meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, the commander was doing exactly what Mr. Hung had asked him to do. However, seeing his own skills, the commander felt disappointed. It had been many days, and maybe that's why he was not as sharp anymore. On this side of the wall, at the same time, Zheng Rian also swung her sword blindly, and a cotton wool fell into Shokdong's hand in the shape of a plum blossom. At first, Zheng Rian thought that maybe she was the one who had done it, and that she was some martial arts genius, but Shokdong shook his head and denied it. Then, suddenly, the cotton wool in Shokdong's hand burst and scattered into the air like snow. At that moment, snow started falling on them, which was actually cotton wool. Shokdong climbed the wall and tried to see what was on the other side, but he saw no one there. They couldn't understand who had turned the cotton wool into a flower, and then made it burst into the air like snow. Who was that person with such extraordinary skills? So, in this way, Mr. Hung showed the commander his new home, where he was going to stay. There was a study room, and workers who came to work in the Jung family. The workers who came to work in the Jung family also used it as a restroom. The commander, after looking at the room, says nothing. It was unclear whether he liked the room or not. Mr. Hung then tells the commander to rest, and leaves to bring him some clothes. After Mr. Hung leaves, the commander sits in a lone chair in the room, and, as he closes his eyes, he begins to sense the entire room. The width of the room, 15 steps. The length, 9 steps. The distance from the ground to the ceiling, 10 steps. Most of the furniture is made of cedar wood. However, all these were around 4 meters apart. The ceiling thickness is 3 centimeters. The width of the wall. The commander's eyes suddenly open, as if he had just awakened from sleep. He covers his face with his hands. Just then, from outside, a girl says that Mr. Hung has sent clothes for him. The commander asks her to leave the clothes outside, saying he will take them later. Then he asks, "Wait a minute, do you people have alcohol here?" Inside the room, the commander's entire body was trembling. Meanwhile, Jung was still searching for the master warrior, which was why she had hired a man for the task. That man had just arrived with the investigation report. He said, "From what I have found in this investigation, a total of 6 people went to the backyard. 2 of them went to unload the goods, and the other 4 were servants." Jung Ryong asked, "Apart from them, was there any warrior or guard there?" The man replied, "No, there was no one." This answer made Jung look tense. The man continued, "Actually, I didn't get the chance to investigate all the people because I was in a hurry, so if you give me a little more time, I can investigate the rest and let you know." Jung Ryong refused. She was thinking, the Jung family's residence is not a place where just anyone can come and go, and to use martial arts in such a place, one must be an expert so that others do not notice them. Now I am certain that the person is one of those 3 warriors, but the question is, who could it be? All 3 are so talented that it could be any one of them. How will I find out who it is? Just then, the man spoke again. "Miss, I don't know if I should say this or not. This information is not entirely reliable." Seeing him hesitate, Jung Ryong said, No, tell me. It may not be reliable, but it is important enough for you to want to tell me." But the man still wasn't confident about whether he should share the information or not. After thinking for a while, he said, "Look, I found this information by chance while wandering around. There's a rumor that a man, who might be one of the 7 wanderers, is currently staying in Namgung." This information shocked Jang. She could hardly believe her ears. "The 7 wanderers? Do you mean those 7 wanderers? Did I hear you correctly?" The man said, "A friend of mine who works in the wall's account told me." When Jang Ryong had first picked up her sword, her father had told her that in the present times, there were certain experts known as Il Deng Ching. Each master was known by their nickname or a special name. Along with this, Jung's father had also told her about 7 people she must remember, because she might need to know about them someday. And those 7 people were known as the 7 Wanderers, mysterious 7 Wanderers. Wherever the wind blows, they follow, leaving no trace behind. Seeing the young lady lost in thought, the man spoke again. "Let me repeat once more. This information is not reliable." But Jung Ryong wasn't hearing anything anymore. Suddenly she said, We are going to the place where one of the 7 wanderers was seen." After this, we see Jung Ryong getting ready. As she prepared, she recalled what the investigator had told her a while ago. "Miss, a few days ago, my friend was closing his shop when he saw a man not far away whose face was covered with cloth. Just by looking into his eyes, it was clear that he was very handsome. Then, by mistake, my friend's eyes went toward the man's waist, and there he saw a Daenold. If you are carrying a Daenold along with a beautiful face, wouldn't that make you moke? I know there is a 90% chance that this information is incorrect because in that city, you can find 1 or 2 people dressed like that. Besides, just by looking from the outside, how can anyone tell if he is Daenold or not?" But Jung Ryong was ready to take the risk. Even if it was just a rumor, for Moke, such a risk was worth taking. The warriors who arrived today might be the best warriors from their respective regions, but Moke was on a different level. Even He Ping Jia, who was not just one of the strongest in Gos, but also one of the most powerful families in the entire continent. Their skills were nothing compared to the 7 wanderers. In other words, Moke was the true master of this entire country. Just then, Mr. Hung arrived, and seeing Jung Ryong in such attire, he was shocked. "What happened?" Jung Ryong said, "Hung, no please. Get me a carriage right now. I need to meet someone immediately." Mr. Hung said, No. Young miss, Lord has strictly forbidden anyone from leaving the house until the end of this month. Zhang Ryong replied. I know that, but I have to go, Mr. Hung shouted. No, if the Lord finds out, he will not stay silent, especially when Sijiwa Young has just sent an ultimatum a few days ago. That's why if you go alone, we don't know what kind of danger you might face. I don't know what's going on, but I can't allow this.